Thank you. You can get some of the most wonderful lines from books, various different books. And here's one that I'd like to give out to anybody here that's interested as a writer's challenge to just take this line and make a poem out of it. And this is from Clive Barker's Cabal. The sun rose like a stripper, keeping its glory well covered by cloud, till it seemed there'd be no show at all, then casting off its rags, one by one. And here's what I came up with for that line. As we waited in darkness, the sun rose like a stripper, keeping her glory well hidden. It seemed there would be no show at all, till gradually, one by one, she shed each wisp of cloud, revealing the grandeur of her shining presence, sensually caressing our skins with the gentle, warm rays of the morning.
Things get intense sometimes, and when they get intense, you need a little bit of herbal essence.
Squeeze the bottom to operate. That works.
Dirty old man.
I'm not that old. I'm dirty though.
You are dirty.
A place inside. The thoughts come whether we want them or not. Like children pestering for something sweet. They yearn for sweet things. We tell them too much is bad for them. They don't believe us. We have a problem believing some things also. It is so wondrous when love is kind. We expect it will last forever. But sometimes a moment arrives that bleeds us white, that tells us what we can't be told. Then inside of us is a place that stays forever cold.
Our next poet also has a book for sale tonight, Rain Tree Poet.
I brought a card tonight so I wouldn't forget mine. It's shameless. Doug Westberg will be the featured poet at Barnes & Noble this last Tuesday of the month, January 26th. Okay? Y'all got it? It is not. It's the 26th.
27.
Okay. The last Tuesday of the month. Okay. Sorry about the numbers. I'm a letter person. Okay. I have a blog, and I've been having a lot of fun with the blog, and it's turning into, I don't know what. It's morphed into, I don't know what. But today, Elvis would have been 80 years old. And so I thought about that this morning and made a post about Dear E. How do you remember your first crush? Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was born on January 8, 1935. He would have been 80 today. As far as millions are concerned, he left us too soon. I remember seeing Elvis on the Ed Sullivan Show performing Hound Dog. I was a little girl, but I was instantly smitten. Elvis was my first realization of the attraction of the opposite sex. Sorry, Pop. He was handsome, spoke with an elegant, soft Southern accent, and boy, could he move. And he did have a singular voice that many have copied since. However, Elvis was the first Elvis. From puberty through my teens, I purchased every Elvis album and I saw every Elvis movie. My best friend Jenny had to endure my gushing plans to marry Elvis when I grew up. I was indeed dejected when the news revealed that Elvis married Priscilla in Vegas. It was in the spring of my senior year, and I had plans to go find Elvis after I graduated. Nonetheless, I continued to love Elvis from afar. A few months before I was to be married, my college friend Sharon surprised me with a ticket to see Elvis in Seattle. We were not disappointed. Elvis was still trim and energetic and performed in the round, dancing to each section of the audience in his stellar way. He was every bit the star I had imagined him to be. When Elvis died suddenly at 42, I cried as if he was ripped directly from me, as I am fairly sure millions of women of our generation felt that same sudden severing of that love cord from his heart to ours. Elvis was so beloved that there were sightings for years afterwards. People simply could not let go. Elvis impersonators flowered everywhere. It is still one of my favorite fantasies to go to Vegas and get married by an Elvis impersonator. That would be the bomb. Of course, I would have to find myself a fiance who appreciated Elvis too. The legend lives on. Braintree Poet reporting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And next another. Thank you very much. Throw your parents on stage right now. Thank you very much. And we next have someone else who has chapbooks for sale here tonight, Joyce Colson.
I'll start with a shameless plug. The 21st of January. That's 6 days before Barnes & Noble.
I looked at the calendar wrong. Shoot me.
Well, at least you knew you got the day right. I mean, I couldn't forget the day.
Well, that's the next poetry reading at Paper Tiger Coffee Roasters. I will not have a feature. Instead, this being January, commonly known as William Stafford Month, I'm inviting everyone to bring their favorite deceased poet poem and share a poem by your favorite deceased poet, or William Stafford, or a poem of your own about death. I'm going to share 3 poems tonight. I'm going to be greedy, share 3 instead of 1. This first one, I want to give thanks to Julie, who read about that Clive Barker prompt or challenge about the sun rose like a stripper. I decided to let my alter ego Fiona Fantasia write this one. So it's called Gypsy Rose Sun instead of Gypsy Rose Lee. The sun rose like an exotic stripper, seductively hiding behind translucent clouds that shifted and swayed as if there would be no show at all. Then when her glory seemed unattainable, she began casting off the gray cloaks of winter and spread her passionate warmth in living color and sensual display. It was the morning after. It was doldrums and melancholy. It was languishing in misery. Then, like an ardent cupid, a single ray of sunshine floated down with delicate air and kissed her. A new day had begun, and the naked sun was her lover again. This next one is a challenge that Russ introduced to me from a novel by Frank Herbert, one of his Dune novels. And I wrote a poem about based on this statement here, which was theater graffiti in the novel. The wreckage of man's repeated attempts to control the universe is strewn along the beaches of history. I tend to write sci-fi short stories rather than sci-fi poetry. But tonight I'm going to read a science fiction poem called The Beach of History. I got out of my time machine and stood contemplating the dark gray sands of the beach. I reached down and picked up a handful. The rough grains slipped through my fingers, and I realized that these sands of time contained overwhelming lost opportunities. The deathly echo of the mournful surf crashed and reverberated in my brain. It was high tide, and the melancholy waters had littered the beach with man's driftwood. Ocean foam lapped gingerly around a dark and foreboding piece of debris. It was the raised fist of a Napoleon statue. I walked through time a few feet further on and marveled at some more debris etched in a cluster of swastikas. Overhead, the lonely cry of seagulls sounded more like the lonely growl of a forlorn Messerschmitt. My time machine rested in the sand a few hundred feet away and wailed. It begged me it was time to go. As heavy dark clouds scudded overhead, a sobbing cold wind blew in from the east. A few feet further away in the gray sand lay the Statue of Liberty, no longer free. The distant beach ahead was obscured by a thick and mesmerizing fog. It kept whispering to me about fate. I turned away from it and walked toward my time machine and salvation. Before I climbed in, I took one last look. That's when I saw myself walking away. Yes, it was me, or an older me in some distant future. I called out to her, "Don't go, come with me to salvation," I said. She stopped, turned to me and said, "You're too late. This is a beach of history. Man had his chance and blew it. By coming here, you are doomed to repeat it." My older self was right, you know. I'm stuck on this beach of human history, and my life sluggishly moves through time. The tide goes in, the tide goes out, and man's wreckage accumulates in a haphazard strewn condition. My time machine no longer functions. There's only one escape, one way out. I finally reached the other side of the fog. The clear blue skies and bright sunshine on a light-colored buoyant beach, where controlling the universe is a joke. As I laugh, St. Peter meets me at death's door. And this last one I'm going to share actually happened to me. On December 12th, I was in that place of being fully asleep and fully awake in the morning. And I got this psychic phone call. And this is a poem about that psychic phone call. I was drifting in Never Never Land, between the night of deep sleep and the morning of wide awake. I was aware of only the silent peace. The psychic phone didn't ring, and there was no phone to answer. My awakened sleeping self heard a voice. The voice was neither loud or silent. The ether of the place call flowed, and the privacy of conversation was assured. I was offered advice about my life and gently reassured my life was advisable. Between the nothingness of something uncertain, beneath the curtain of bodily sleeping awakened, I received a loving psychic phone call and was told I belonged where I was. When the phone call ended with careful care, my life changed from doing to being, and the clairvoyant results of the talk left me reassured I was walking the correct path. I was aware of only the silent peace. My awakened, sleeping self heard a voice, and the privacy of conversation was assured. Between the nothingness of something uncertain, I awoke to my own sense of being loved, and the greatest gift of being able to give that love away.
Joyce mentioned the William Stafford readings that happen every January, and there are just countless readings around the area. I'm hosting one that will take place next Wednesday at the Vancouver Library. The way that these usually work is you bring along a poem by William Stafford to read. You don't have to know his work or know anything about him to participate, and then this time around, I'll read some work by William Stafford with Caroline Chaparro on saxophone at the end of the evening. So I hope that some of you can be with us there on Wednesday. Next, we're going to hear from Russ. Come on up, Russ.
First of all, as a proxy, if anybody knows the correct pronunciation, Lanita or Lanata, who knows her well, she left early, but she asked me to read this for her. And I remember it as Lanita, I'm not sure if I'm right. Lanita J. Meeker. She was having some trouble with laryngitis, and she had to leave early, probably needs to get rest, but it was more transportation. This is called A Twilight Swim. The afternoon sun is dropping as I stand here in the chill tide. I feel the undertow pulling against me as the early moon calls its lover. I know the urgency of the foaming whitecaps, rushing after one another to rejoin the sea. But there's no hurry for me. There is no campfire on the beach tonight. So she has the note of it being 1987 and Riverside, I guess Riverside, California. I think she has California ties.
Love the hat.
Thank you. Julie found this at
That's my
another
hat, yeah.
another great Vancouver institution that I hope doesn't pass into memory, and that's the Urban Eccentric, right? Isn't that where you found
Urban
it?
Eccentric, yeah.
Yeah.
It was in a pile of consigned things.
She got it for like $7.
Yeah, it was in a pile of consigned things, and I said, if she gets the hat, I will buy it. Yeah.
And another thing, Joyce, great job on that that prompt. But just as a point of accuracy, it's the Dune saga, and it is immense. But Frank did not write all of it. Just like Christopher Tolkien working on interpreting the works of his father, Brian Herbert has teamed up with Kevin J. Anderson. So this is a copy that's here in the bookstore. You could buy it, House Carino. Great series overall. Brian and Kevin have done a wonderful job with working from Frank's notes, writing at least 2 prequel trilogies, plus there's lots of other ones I have no idea where they fit in the overall cycle.
They're his son.
His son and another prominent author, Kevin J. Anderson. I haven't read anything of his, but I think he's famous for Snow Crash or something like that. It was a famous cyberpunk novel early on. Okay, I haven't been writing much myself, but I like what was mentioned earlier about how many of us poets have some other medium. Often, many of us are writing and some visual thing, drawing or painting or something. And so for me, that's mostly doodling. And I enjoyed writing this during an open mic at Mon Ami 2 months ago. Christy Krug was the feature, and one of her friends was there to see her. And the friend was doodling through most of the performance. A lot of us are that kind of thinker. We're paying attention, but we're also doodling. So I thought this funny, the meta stuff that I was thinking about myself while I was drawing, doodling, and she was doodling, and somebody made a comment about listening style and how doodlers actually do pay attention. So this is titled Jenna Doodling. Taking a break from doodling, she embraces her mouth and chin with interlaced fingers. One thumb scratches the nose. She doodles to prove she is listening. She doodles to prove.
We didn't see the picture.
Oh, well, I was just doodling. To prove we're listening.
Next, we're going to hear from Bruce Hall, who has an interesting book that I hope he will at least hold up and let you see and tell you his opinion.
I was at the beach and went into a secondhand store and saw this book, and it's Contemporary American Woman Poets. It was, well, the foreword is signed November 30th, 1935. So I had to get it. But this is part of the foreword. Jump here in the middle. Our approach in planning contemporary American women poets is well expressed in an editorial note from the New Republic of October 23rd, 1935, which represented the work of 8 women poets. The editors do not feel that women produce a poetry so distinct from the poetry written by men that it needs to be displayed by itself. It happens, however, that in the various poetry anthologies printed during the past year, women poets were not adequately represented. From earliest times, women have been put in their place, so unequivocally pronounced by one Knowles, Knowles, quote, then there's a line, so maybe there was something before this. Women act their parts. When they do, their ordered houses know them. Men must be busy out of doors, must stir the city, yea, make the great world aware they are in it, for the mastery, for which the race and the wrestle. End of quote. Today, men have to wrestle not only with male competitors in business, politics, and arts, but with the opposite sex as well. In the past, women, with the exception of a Barrett here or a Dickinson there, wrote in trivialities. They've obviously never been to Ghost Town. Meekly they adopted, or was it affected, the premise of the dominant male that women do not, nay, should not think. It was dangerous business and apt to lead to a life of spinsterhood. The contemporary woman is alive, aware, actually dares to read what she likes, to write as she feels, and the art even revolve around her approval. She is now the greatest consumer as well as producer of literature. So there's just short of 1,200 poems in here, and I just read a few, but this is called Addressed to a Deity by Geraldine Wolfe. Look down, our skies have changed, but little, and our stars are true in their predestined course. But this small globe that clamors spitefully, rising its cries to heaven, as it moves sluggishly within the circle, this earth, mapped and remapped, and peopled with the creatures who walk upright and talk like and make display of wit and wisdom, this earth, its oceans and its continents divided and marked with pompous colors on charts that hang in every schoolroom. This man, and this his knowledge, and how to build, abandon, and destroy. Man hurries forward. Only the unperturbed, slow planet holds him back. Only the solid ball he treads upon. Only the earth that suffers him to walk, to scar its surface with his tunnels and his towers. Though he digs deep, the center lies untouched, his pygmy tools inadequate. The core remains immaculate, intact, and though he struts and boasts, the silent sphere holds fast his curious feet. And though he dreams, his dreams are of the earth. Look down and watch his cities rise, for the polluted valleys, pushing and quarreling, he rushes on, laying his roadways and erecting signs, proudly possessive. Thus, to his dirty, noisy globe, and the accumulated filth in generations, trials in his path. If you have pity on him, but pity turns from malice. If you could hate, but hate is lost in sorrow. Vain blundering flesh, too quickly wounded, his braggart heart cries out in fear and pain. If you were brave the odor of his sin, then lay your great hand lightly on his brow, and lest you sicken with the sight of him, avert your eyes, drawn down cloud canopies to shield them. Lest you grow angry, and in anger tighten your muscles with your wrist, grasping the globe against your palm, feeling beneath your nails the oozing rivers, feeling the earth grow warm with flesh and blood, and spreading wide your fingers, crushing the offending planet. Jerk it loose, and with the terror of your strength, disrupt the cosmic pattern of the night.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of them just rhyme, but that one's, I liked it, the ones I've read so far. And this one's one of mine. It's from, wrote it in Christopher's class, and people brought in and wrote some lines, and this is one I did. It said, after oceans and shadows of hills, and the sounds after losses and feet on the stairs. So this is footsteps on the stairs. The child screams. Ache in the bones scream. Mommy and Daddy both run to the child's bed. What's the matter, honey? It's all right. Mommy and Daddy are here. No, it's not, screams the child. After the oceans, waves, endless waves, waves pulling me in, sweeping me down, never revealing the fins, snapping, gashing, just below the foam. After the shadows of the hills, sloughing down, covering venomous fangs, slashing teeth, a landslide engulfing all, no one escapes. After the sounds of loss, slashing knives, thunderous guns, whispered lies to soothe, muffle the sobs of the living. Hear it? Hear it? Feel the stair, feet on the stairs. They are coming for me, and you cannot stop them.
I think it's so cool when someone finds a book like that and begins just to explore what's in it. I was thinking about, and I read the foreword earlier, I was thinking about how lucky we are, the women of today, that we can write what we want and say what we want, and not everywhere, I realize that.
Been a long time coming.
But yeah, and it wasn't really until the 1970s when you saw a lot of women emerge and get recognition as poets, except for those who were famous, a few of them, long before. So anyway, thank you for that. And now for the sisters, and we'll start with Jan Ice. Come on up, Jan. Sit close.
Okay, this one is titled 12, 11, 13. Venturing out for an artistic night of poetry and prose, I braved the wrath of Mother Nature. Even after weathering her temper since just after dawn, I am still surprised to find the vast abundance of evidence of her mood littering my world. As I leave the relative safety of my parking space and wind my way through the apartment complex to the street, I see where she has carelessly tossed heavy branches down on garage rooftops, tearing off the gutters in more than one place. She has smashed car windshields with broken off treetops and toppled a whole tree down to flatten a van. When I arrive at the road, I look to the right. there is a small group of people arguing with Mother Nature about the placement of a fallen tree. She grudgingly accepts the new spot for it on the shoulder rather than blocking traffic. I turn left, make my way through the intersections with traffic lights darkened. Smaller debris litter the highway, swirling about in the fierce wind as I fight to hold my vehicle in the center of my assigned lane. Meanwhile, she tries to push me into the ditch. Lights are out in many places, and long stretches of roadways are dark, made even darker by the fallen greenery hugging the sides and leaning into the traffic lanes. Still, I find it was well worth my time to brave Mother Nature's wrath to make this drive and enjoy the poems from other brave souls who came out tonight.
I guess you know who's next. Grace, come on up.
Okay, this one is called Rhythmic Beat. I left myself on the street's rhythmic beat, fingertips breathing in clamorous chaos as earphones amplify music's idle charm. Wild words of flirtation spun in a mystical web of fascination. Novelty of lasting romance sifts through fingers' grasp. A love note drifting, soaked by freezing rain. Hope shivers in the night, screams past every breath, shudders and fades. In bitter moments lay quickening heartaches, keeping time with the street's rhythmic beat. Light shine on inspiration's epiphany, flows like a song on a crisp breeze, spills off sweetened tongue. Building a haven in city heights with a flourish of bright independence. A new address to call mine. Dancing to the street's rhythmic beat. Thank you.
And next we're going to hear from someone who's been coming to Ghost Town. Before it was called Ghost Town. When people were eating ice cream on the other side. So Lori Loringer, come on up. Howdy. Some of you may know that Lawrence Ferlinghetti holds a special place in my heart. And yes, he is. And in honor of his recent birthday, which I don't remember exactly which day it was, I wrote yet another poem on a take on his poem "I Am Waiting," which is one of my favorite poems. So I have been assured that this is overtly political while lacking wit, humor, and perspective. So, you know, you're warned. At the risk of having an opinion and not being meek, here you go. Awaiting the rebirth of Wonder World. I am waiting to feel normal, for my vote to count, to be represented, to grow up and act my age, for the recently born to show me a world of wonder again for the first time. I am waiting for things to make sense, to discover that life is fair after all, for Homeland Security to make me feel safer, for the local police to quit making me wonder who they will shoot next. I am waiting for the last laugh, my 15 minutes of fame. I got that, so I'm done. For the final complete collapse of the capitalist economy, for the chance to really start again and create a stateless world of wonder. I am waiting for the spin cycle to wind down, for my ship to come in, for the world to stop and let me off, for Obamacare to equal Obama actually caring. I am waiting still to see what a free market economy looks like, to gaze into the face of God and be pleasantly surprised. I am waiting for my incoming ship to drop anchor safely in the land of the free, for the natives to swim up and be greeted with love and kindness, for the conquering heroes to appreciate their generosity and behave as guests ought, for an actual land of the free to spring into being on this very planet.
I am waiting for the bourgeoisie to understand that we really don't have another planet to move to after we trash this one. For the realization that money isn't everything to sink in and take hold and make everyone wonder. I await the admission that there's no such thing as normal, the arrival of wisdom along with age. I am waiting for self-responsibility to catch on big and result in the ultimate representation. And I am waiting, ever and always, waiting for this world's rebirth as a magnificent new world of wonder. I'm very patient. And this is just something I found scrawled in my notebook after I got here tonight.
How many lifetimes you gonna live to see that?
Whatever it takes. So this is from early in 2009, and it's called Aboriginal. I result from the convergence of many native peoples, each of whom said, "We are the people." To each of them, all others were strangers and not the true people. But still, these peoples came together, and so here I am, asking you now, are we not each a result of the coming together of many native people? Can we not be silent and hear our heart beat?
I'm going to turn the rest of the list over to Chris to take it home tonight. There's a few more people left on here. But before I do, I just want to say again how much I have appreciated being here and to thank all of you for continuing to coming back again, bringing your good work, and really making this touch me so deeply. And I'm so grateful to each of one of you and to Mel and Mark. This has been wonderful. Let's hear from Jane Elder Moore.
I want to say what I am going to miss about this is Mel.
Yes.
Getting to see Mel and knowing she's there and knowing she can help me through my greatest trials.
I'll meet you at the post office in Battleground, Jane.
Can't count on that. It does happen. But anyway, I hope you can solve that problem for us somehow.
I'm still available by bookstore email anytime.
It's all very mysterious.
Yes.
The way you're going off into the ether.
She did her good deed, now she's riding off into the sunset.
Well, I don't know where she's going, but I hope that we get a glimpse.
I hope it's one home sunset.
I have a lot to say, but I'm going to try and cut it a little short because we have the greater part of the list after intermission. And some people have left. I'm not going to try to do this. I work with older people who are pretty microphone shy, and what I find with them is that they think if they're holding it, that's good enough. They don't need to put it up to their face. And just hold it like some kind of an icon. It doesn't help. And also, I've noticed tonight that if you do get up to your face, for one thing, you might get a cold, as Em pointed out. But also, and we do not want that cold. It's bad. And not just hers. I've seen it going around. It's bad. But also, there's this puffy sound. So I'm just gonna go for it. And I recently, like 11:40 a.m. on Saturday morning, finished the book that I've been working on for years. Amongst other things going on, I've been working on that book, and I finally got it done. And I found that now that it's done, I now begin the work of actually finishing it. It's like building a table. It's got 4 legs and it doesn't wobble. And now I've got to do the finish work on it. So, but I couldn't call it a first draft until it was done, and it is done now. So I'm very happy and in the mood for homage. And so I didn't bring anything of my own. I brought a couple of other things, one from the library. I was going to read a poem of M's. Because I've been reading from her book, I totally recommend that book, being a widow myself. And it's all about widowhood, and it's beautiful, as you can imagine from hearing her read tonight. And but I sort of chickened out because I hadn't asked her if I could read it, and she told me it would have been fine. So I recommend everybody buy, or there's only one copy left, but anyway, read M's book. But I did bring a couple of other things. One is the famous chapter 15 of Nabokov's Speak Memory, his autobiography of his childhood and its abrupt ending when they had to leave Russia. And in this little passage, he and his young wife, his young self and his young wife are considering their child, their new child, and the amazingness of that child. And it's a very beautiful passage, and I was going to read more of it. But what I'll read, just because it's directly for all of you, is about the time, what he calls an infant's first journey into the next dimension, the newly established nexus between I and reachable object, which the career boys in biometrics or in the rat maze racket think they can explain. It occurs to me that the closest reproduction of the mind's birth obtainable is the stab of wonder that accompanies the precise moment when, gazing at a tangle of twigs and leaves, one suddenly realizes that what had seemed a natural component of that tangle is a marvelously disguised insect or bird. There is also keen pleasure in meeting the riddle of the initial blossoming of man's mind by postulating a voluptuous pause in the growth of the rest of nature, a lulling and loafing, which allowed, first of all, the formation of Homo poeticus. That's you guys. Without which sapiens could not have been evolved. Struggle for life, indeed. The curse of battle and toil leads man back to the boar, to the grunting beast's crazy obsession with its search for food. You and I, he's talking to his wife, have frequently remarked upon that maniacal glint in a housewife's scheming eye as it roves over food in a grocery or about the morgue of a butcher's shop. Toilers of the world, disband. Old books are wrong. The world was made on a Sunday. Toilers of the world, disband. I was all alone and I just shouted with laughter when I read that because it's really workers of the world unite. Just in case you didn't get that. Okay, and in my delight, since I finished my book on Saturday, I've been roving around and staying away from it. I've got to let it cool, and then I've got to go back and start the finish work. And I've been reading this book, which is such a treasure. And this is the kind of thing that I found it for $3 on Mel's poetry shelf. Archie and the Hittable. And it takes me back to my father. It was first published in 1927, and he loved this book. And I remember him reading it to me and laughing. And I didn't quite know what he was laughing about. Now there he is again. I'm connected with him. That's what books can do, that the electronic Homo electricus, that we're going to, electronicus, that we're going to be all living with and in, and all of that they're talking. I'm glad I'll be gone.